This is the Fight for Your Health, the show that teaches you how to master the fine art of living your life on purpose and have a longer, healthier, and happier life through the martial arts lifestyle. The show is hosted by Professor Buitron and his co-host, Grand Master Richard Hackworth. These two experts have combined their efforts and are on a mission to make the world a safer, healthier, and happier place through the martial arts lifestyle. Now, to tell it like it is, here are your hosts.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to that time of the week that you've been waiting for, the Fight for Your Health TV show with Professor Buitron. I am your co-host, Richard Hackworth, and today we have a very controversial topic for you. We're going to talk about why you should be careful about what federation you belong to as an individual or as a school owner. And we have some very good insight on this. And for those of you that are first-time viewers, we'd like to welcome you and drop a number 1 in the comments below if this is your first time seeing us. And don't forget to punch that subscribe button while you're there. All right, Professor Buitron, if you'd like to go ahead and get us started here.
Sure, I hope everybody's well. Thank God I am, and I know that you are as well. And we're in the middle of summer, and a lot of schools and a lot of kids are both joining and leaving the school because of vacation and so on and so forth. So it's kind of a hectic time frame for a lot of martial arts schools out there because, you know, they don't know exactly what's going to happen. But we can talk about those topics later on because number one, we say fight for your health, but also your mental health. You know, you have to be mentally stable and in a good, calm figure to run a martial arts school because not only are you teaching, you have to run the business. But alongside those businesses, folks always say, what association, what federation, what confederation you're in or consolidation, what have you. There's many names to name these organizations in there. A lot of these names are governing bodies that are legitimate and have been around for a very long time. Some of them are just a school that runs it and wants their students to be part of that for them to continue their own ranking. But what I'm talking about is basically what is good and what is bad. And I'm going to Grand Master Hackworth is going to lead us into that and kind of fill it in, and then we'll take off with that. So, what would you say with federations, associations? What should people look out for?
Well, I think first and foremost, you want to look for an organization that is respected and international. If the school you go to is the only school that belongs to that association, that's a warning sign. So you want to belong to a bigger organization because they have very well-established standards. So people who earn their ranks in that are respected. Whereas some of these other little fly-by-night organizations, they just run testing whenever the rent is due and try to pull in some cash, and they really don't have any standards. And in some of those organizations, you'll find where no 2 black belts learned the same thing from white belt to black belt. And you can't do that. That's why they have curriculums. You know, even in public school, you know, if you go to school in your state, you're going to learn the same history and the same math as everybody else in your state for those grades. And the martial arts should be the same way as well, because they have very well-established histories and origins. So you want to drink from the purest source. You want to make sure that your source for your art is the closest to the founder. And that's the way that you get the best training, you know, by drinking, as I say, drinking from the source. And then on top of that, we want to keep in mind that you have higher quality teachers because they have standards. And I'll give you an example. One of the Korean martial arts organizations that I belong to, in Korea, martial arts training is at the university level. You can get a bachelor's degree in your martial art with a minor in physical education and teach at a public school. And in the United States, we don't have that luxury. So when that happened, the standards went way up because it was no longer about, you know, just your school. It was about the worldwide standard for our art. And so even if you're not getting a college degree, you have to be at least 24 years old, clear police background check, and you either have to have a bachelor's degree to get your instructor's license, or you must have completed a 2-year internship at a school that's allowed to conduct that program, or otherwise you're not an instructor, you're just another black belt. And learning about class format, curriculum, lesson plans, all of those things enhance the learning process for the student. So anyone that doesn't want to do that is really shortchanging their student. And to me, that kind of person is just kind of slinging martial arts classes on the side to make a little extra cash. They're not what I would consider a professional instructor.
Absolutely. You know, you're correct about about associations and federations and whatnot. There's associations for the sporting aspect as well, both for the combative entity of it or for the point fighting entity of it. And those associations, you have to be very careful. These people just out there to get your money for you to go to a tournament circuit, or do they have other benefits as well? Like you take example like USA Savate or USA Boxing. You have an insurance when your competitor goes to compete. They cover that. USA Boxing does, as well as USA Savate does. When when competitions are there, you have to be a member. The officials have to be a member. Everybody understands the rules and regulations, the safety equipment for you to be able to compete. I've seen a lot of associations that say, okay, we compete, and this grandmaster is going to be the judge, and his student is fighting. No, no, no. Everything has to be on the level, above board. There has to be no conflict of interest, even though some judges, kind of favor that. But on what I'm trying to get at is that there's a lot more transparency and there's a lot more safety with organizations that have been around for a longer time, and they've become the standard for that sport or combative sport. Understand? Take note on the following what I'm going to say. When we brought Savate, or when Savate started, a lot of people know, our school was deemed the first school of Savate here in the States, and that was deemed that way by the French Federation of Savate. In fact, we have plaques and stuff there in the wall. At that same time, the year before that, when that was occurred, the Texas Association of Savate was formed. Just to give you all some bit of history, and it was formed, and it was passed in the Department of Education of Texas. So we were able to teach in schools as a curriculum basis, similar to what happened in France, kind of what you were saying with the Korean based martial arts and associations over there. In France, if you became a professor of Savate, of boxe française Savate, well, guess what? You can also teach at an education level in a school as a professor of physical education or one of those classes. So you had to get a similar type of associates. I got one. That's why you have two different professors. You have a professor of Savate and you have a professor d'etat of the state. And I'm one. And people need to understand what comes with that. But here in the United States, and I don't want to derail myself, but here in the United States, people do not know the histories, and people do not know those objectives that were the standard of where that art was developed. So here in the States, people believe anything because they really don't know the history. And that is the problem. So let's go back with the Texas Association. We started having competitions. We had some competitions. First thing that happened in one of our competitions in Dallas, this gentleman comes up and he goes, "Man, that was very well organized. Where did you learn this?" "Well, I learned in France, isn't this?" He goes, "I'm the head boxing commissioner for the state of Texas. Are you guys registered?" So we went, "No, but teach us." He goes, "We're not going to give you a citation," which they could have given us a citation. In fact, they could have stopped the event. Yes. And they said, "We like what you all did. We want to be part of what you all did. We want you all to do it correctly." And from that day in 1992, it took us to 1996 for us to formulate USA Savate, which ended up becoming the national governing body for the sports of Savate. So what I'm getting at is that as time progressed, we had to have standards and stuff that was precedent. So, as they told us, the oldest combative association was AAU. And from AAU sprung USA Boxing and USA Wrestling and so on and so forth. So, you all have to follow those similar patterns. So, we had to develop an organization for that pattern, safety. And that's what happens with the Combatives Association. Hopefully, I don't get off track with some of the viewers out there for them to understand what I'm talking about. Because if the association that you're looking for is for a competition, then start searching for an association that has safety standards for competition. Understand? Because there's many out there that just simply want your money, like you said. Now, the teaching associations, I'm gonna have you touch base with that, and I can follow with that because there's so many different associations, just like Grand Master.
Well, I think for the most part that one of the things that you touched on earlier about the standards, it's not just about the safety, it's about the integrity of the championships, because you know that the people that were declared champions that day legitimately won because there was no favoritism going on, because this guy was a student of this teacher or whatever. You know, the integrity was there, so that everybody that left that competition knew that even if they didn't win, they did their best, and the best man won. So the integrity of the arts is very important, particularly in competition, because when sponsors see shady stuff going on at the events, they don't want to be a part of that. And that's what's happened a lot in the sport karate field. There were, Coca-Cola was ready to be a sponsor. They went to a large event and they saw that the refereeing and judging was so biased that they decided not to do it. So these things affect everyone. And I'm telling you that if major corporations like that get behind the arts, that it makes it easier for the parents, because I know parents say that their child is a national level taekwondo competitor. They're spending $30,000 to $50,000 a year to go to all of the major state championships and national tryouts and national championships, plane tickets, hotels, the cost of competing. And that stuff, the prices of that keep going up and up. But as you get sponsors involved, they're able to bring down, what the parents are stuck paying to something more affordable. Now, I know in Korea, because of their amateur athletics there, that the events are free. There is no entry fee to compete at those ladder events in Korea. So what I call a ladder event, and this is the other thing, a lot of these tournaments are just thrown up, there's no ladder event. So in the major organizations, you have to win your city tournament. Then you have to win your county tournament. Then you have to win at your district. Then you have to win at the state level. After the state level, you get to go to regionals and then nationals. So any organization that doesn't have that set up, is those tournaments are basically for entertainment. Sure. It's soccer moms out there paying for their kids to get a trophy, because it doesn't lead to any specific regulated real championship.
Absolutely. And I'm going to touch base on that right there, what you said. Those ladder events, those associations that have ladder events. Let's just take boxing as per se. That's the most common. That's a person that understands that even if they're not involved in boxing, they understand that it exists. Let's start with the Golden Gloves. You have your regional Golden Gloves, and you have your state, and you have your nationals. As you progress and you become nationals, then you can go into the Olympic or go to the trials for the Olympic team of USA Boxing, or you used to back in the night. Might change a little bit now. Maybe you might win another tournament here or there, but that's basically what happened. You became you were able to try out for those events that would lead you to represent the United States. Now there's rules, federal laws that prohibit, how can I say, non-US citizens, okay? And those latter events, because since you're going to represent your country, you have to be a US citizen. That doesn't mean that you were born here. That means that you have to be a U.S. citizen. So I saw it first in Dallas because I had some tremendous boxers back then. They couldn't fight in the Golden Gloves, but they were hellacious in all the different smokers and regional tournaments that we had and all the rest of them because they weren't followed up by a ladder event. And I said, why? Well, they're not citizens. They have to sit this one down. So I understood that. And what happens is all of a sudden now the same thing happened in Savant. Okay, so teaching you a history of Savant. When we started having the U.S. nationals, well, all the U.S. citizens had to fight for that. Well, here come the French and say, well, there's a couple of Canadians and Italians in California and people from other countries, a couple of French guys. We want them to fight and represent the United States. Yes, but they're not U.S. citizens. Also, we're going to make another association for them. We're just going to call it out, not even registered or what have you. And they can fight and you guys can sit down. And it became a little bit more than that. At that point in time, USA Savant was in front of the U.S. Olympic Committee. What I mean in front of, it was recognized that we were the governing body, but we were not accepted because the International Savant Federation hadn't decided whether they were going to be amateur or professional. Because they had tournaments over there that the end game, the person got $500 or $1,000. And they said, that's a professional athlete. You all can't be part of it. Understand what I'm saying? Right. So it put us in a peculiar situation that we can compete internationally and have international events, but we couldn't partake in the lateral events of that main international federation because they were getting paid. There was a championship prize if you won for the champion, you were considered a professional athlete because you competed for money. So that would remove our statuses over here. So that's why we weren't associated with them. And people say, oh, because you're not recognized. It's not because of that. It's because of the reasoning is that association has both amateur and professional in it. That's why it's never going to be in the Olympics. They have to make a choice whether it's going to just stay amateur or it's going to go professional. But a lot of people don't understand that. And those little things can deter people away from association, believing somebody else. It's basically just nonsense. But let's go to associations for rank, because those are the associations that are more common out there, because you go to a martial arts school and they say, oh, I belong to this and this association. What do they do? And take it from there.
Well, I think for the most part, you mentioned a lot of really great things earlier. And when you were talking about state, national, and international, it reminded me that we're worldwide here on YouTube and Facebook. If you're watching us, please drop in the comments what city and country you're in so that we get a feel for who our viewers are, because we always love to hear from you. But on the international aspect of what you're talking about in ranks, a lot of those organizations don't even have a curriculum, so there is no standard for rank. So a lot of them get promoted every so many years. So it took you 3 years to get your black belt, and then 2 more years to get second degree, 3 years for third degree, 4 years for fourth degree, and so on, with no additional knowledge being taught. That's why I like being directly connected to the world headquarters in Korea, because we have access to all of those levels of training. And when you belong to a legitimate organization, you have good career opportunities as well, because if you're a young black belt at a school in Orlando, Florida, it might be pretty easy for you to get a job teaching at one of the other schools that belongs to your organization in the state of Florida. And that happens quite a bit. Sometimes we recruit from other schools and they recruit from us. It just depends on who needs an instructor at the time. And so outside of that, the rank issue is very important because we have the Federal Sports Act of 1978. And for years, the Taekwondo was so corrupt. They're like, you have to have rank certification from the world governing body in Korea to compete on your Olympic team in your country. And finally, some people in our government are like, no, our people are not going to be required to send money to a foreign organization to be eligible to compete on the USA team. your countries don't send us money for basketball. So we're not sending you money for Taekwondo just to register our athletes. That our athletes are competing under our leadership. And I thought it was a great move. And that was in 1978. And it was funny that for years they kept that covered up. They weren't telling anyone. And people were still being charged outrageous fees for these ranks from outside of the country, which really weren't necessary. I mean, it's nice to have if you go to one of those events in Korea and train at that event, get your instructor's license, test for your rank. That's one thing. But to tell everybody here that these people never even look at, have never seen training, that their signature is more important on the document for you to be on your national team, that's just thievery is the most polite way I can think of. And I know that I belong to a different federation for each art that we have at our school. And those of you watching, if you belong to a federation, please feel free to share the name of the federation that you belong to. And if you have questions about the Federation for Savate, reach out to Professor Buitron. Or if you have questions about Taekwondo or Hapkido, the Korean martial arts, feel free to reach out to me and we'll be glad to guide you toward the people that can help you best. But I think that those things definitely are important for the integrity of the art, because the people in those other countries had no idea how good these people were that they were issuing the ranks to. All they knew is that they got their passport photo, their registration form, and the money. So never allow yourself to be victimized that way, because eventually you're going to find out that your rank didn't mean as much as you thought.
Absolutely. And you see that with a lot of on become victimized. You know, you see folks that join a local school, become a black belt in the local school. Then the next black belt becomes a black belt, and they look different than the other one because they were taught something else that wasn't in the curriculum. You have to look at it. One of the best examples of everybody internationally looking the same when they tested, not fighting the same, was Ed Parker's association, Grand Master Ed Parker's association, which was the International Kempo Karate Association, IKKA. Everybody, every yellow belt had to know the same curriculum. Every brown belt had to learn the same curriculum. Every green belt, so on and so forth. And people do not understand that. You have to look the same, not look the same, know the same material. Looking the same is different. But what I'm trying to say is everybody has to know the same, because guess what happens if you go from Cleveland and you move to Louisville, Kentucky, and you find a school, you're not going to be lost. You're going to continue going from where you're at. There might be different nuances or things that you do different in the school to school, but the main body, the main focus is the same. And that's what a system is. That's what a system is, not a style. A style, it's like boxing. I'm going to put it like that. Boxing has basically 4 punches, has a jab, cross, hook, uppercut. There's some other variants that are in there, but those 4 punches are boxing's main body of attacks and defenses, and they're taught that way throughout the world. But every boxing gym has its different stylistic approaches, and that's what makes boxing a style and not a system. And the same thing goes to many others, right? But that's for another show, between the differences between styles and systems. But when you're looking for a school and you're trying to grow within one, you want to have a set goal, what you're going to achieve, because you never know. You started in high school, now you went to college somewhere else, and you want to continue the martial arts, and you find a school that says, "Oh, we do so martial arts," and you go in there, and all of a sudden you realize that it's not the same thing. And you say, "Well, what did they teach me?" That is the most, how can I say, hurtful feeling for students to see and to feel. And you just lost a martial art person that was very enthusiastic about martial arts and is no longer going forward because he found out that what he was taught before was not the right thing. Understand what I'm saying? I hope
I think you made a very great point. We've reached the end of our episode here, but I just wanted to touch on one more thing that you brought up about one of the things that I know that I personally have been impressed with about the Kempo community is they guard their standards. And if somebody's out there not meeting the standards, they make it known so that students don't get victimized. And I think that that says a lot for the integrity of the organization and the member instructors, that they protect their standards and they're not going to promote people that don't deserve it just because a little money can be made. And I really have to say that's a sure sign of quality instruction and integrity when that's going on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So leaving this episode, folks, you all stay safe, be safe, and watch us on the next one. If you have any questions, send it to us. Drop us a line. My email is buitronacademy2012@gmail.com. Please feel free to send one in there. Drop a comment at the bottom of the comment place, and we'll take it from there. Brother, you take care, and folks out there, you all stay safe.
Thank you. Peace. I'll see you next time.
Peace.